Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being with me here at the Life Makeovers podcast. So happy to have you on board today. I'm very excited to introduce you to, are you ready? Mr. Menopause. Yes, I said Mr. Menopause. That's right. Wow. A gentleman who has spent the last 20 plus years helping people deal with menopause. He is a licensed menopause specialist. He's an award-winning healthy aging expert with 3 books, who also does corporate wellness consulting. And he's on this mission to help 1 million women to really reclaim their health and vitality during menopause. So we love him already, right? And I was blessed to meet him through the Wellness Universe, which is a community that we are both members of that gathers together all kinds of experts who are really out there to help people live healthy, happy lives. And so here we are together today to talk about menopause and all things, health and vitality as we age. Thank you, Tafiq, for being here. What would you like to say in terms of introduction to our audience today?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you again for actually asking me to be on. I'm always interested in just spreading the word about menopause awareness, which is one of the aspects of menopause that I think is overlooked. We tend to go right to the symptom relief and right to, all these other specialties, but not really educating people about menopause. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to share that information.
Well, I'm sure everyone listening is very curious why you got interested in this subject in the first place. Are you surrounded by women that went berserko during menopause or perimenopause, and you're like, I need to understand these aliens I am now with?
That's
No
funny.
offense, lady. Just
No, you know what's interesting is I've worked in health and wellness for 24 years. And for whatever reason, no matter what studio I worked at, no matter what club I went into, for whatever reason, women were just more attracted to my training style. And I have to admit, at first it bothered me. I'm like, why don't men want to work out with me? I don't get it. I don't understand. But then I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? These are the people that are coming to me. So just let me serve them as best as I can. And so being one of those people that just like to be the best at what I do, I just started learning more about women's health since those are my clients. I started learning more about their hormones and things like that. And then what happened was, because I had such a big following, that again, I would say about 95% of my following were all women. And
wow.
so they started asking me to do private training. And I don't know if you've done private training, but when you get that kind of relationship with your coach,
Oh, yeah.
it becomes a close relationship. And so
Oh,
I just started learning all about these personal issues that were happening, and even down to relationship with their spouses. Personal trainers really are a lot like psychologists as well, because we get a lot of that information.
yeah.
But with that, I started to notice some correlations between things I saw my mom go through when I was a teenager. And back when my mom was going through it, they didn't even call it menopause. It was called the change of life, or
Oh,
the
yeah.
change. So
Change.
I had never even heard the word menopause, but I did remember all the symptoms when I'm like, wait, my mom went through that like 40 years ago. And I'm like, women are still dealing with the same stuff like all these years later. And
Yes,
so
we
then
are.
that's when I learned. Well, that's how I got into the menopause. I started learning more about hormones, and then that triggered into, of course, trickled down into the
Oh, yeah.
menopause. But I was actually helping women with menopause before I even knew I was helping them with menopause. Like they were coming to me because they thought it was just because they were getting older or because of aging. And so I just focused on their metabolic health, and then focusing on their metabolic health, that helped with their menopause health. And that's how I started combining the two and became more into helping women with menopause, but through my specific metabolic health coaching style.
Wow. So it just kind of evolved,
Yeah,
didn't it?
exactly. It
Just
really
evolved.
did, because I wasn't even, I always was focused on women over 40. It never came down to just focusing on menopause. And it really wasn't until COVID hit that I just started getting an influx of women reaching out to me about it. And then I'm like, wow, I'm like, at that point, I hadn't realized that it was such a taboo subject, so unknown, because again, most of my clientele were people that I already knew from class or that were
Hmm.
referred to me from someone that I knew from class. So I never had to go out and seek it out. So this was the first time that I started learning that women just didn't know. And that was when I'm like, okay, well, then this isn't really about symptom relief. It's not really about, finding the right this or the right that. It's about knowing, understanding, having the education. I always say, when you know better, you can do better. And as it relates to menopause, you can actually live better. And it's just about having the information. I don't know how many women, just by knowing and understanding what's happening to them, they actually feel like hopeful now. A lot
Yeah,
of women see it
love
as a
that.
daunting, thing that
Right.
they dread. They're not looking forward to it. And
Uh-huh.
I always think back to a guy that I met about maybe 7, 8 months ago. He actually is another male that works in menopause, but he does it in Asia. And
Oh,
in Asian culture, well, some Asian cultures, they see menopause as a woman's second spring. And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it. And that's what I want to bring to America and the women here, is to understand that menopause can be a time of, you can reclaim your life. You can navigate this. It's a shift. I always say it's just, they call it's a phase of life. So you
yes.
get to choose how you make that shift, but you won't know how to choose if you don't know what is happening to your body.
I love that. Our second spring. I love
Mhm.
that. Rebirth. I talk about that all the time in the midlife makeover group that I run, and in my
Mhm.
with my coaching clients and everything, that this is a time of you know, rewriting your story, or like writing a whole new story if you want to, or just really coming into yourself again and
Mhm.
understanding yourself and creating the life you really, really want. So I totally get that, what you're saying. And so, in terms of menopause, like, what is it you think women don't know that they need to know? Like, maybe that's an unfair, maybe there's 3,000 answers to that, but like, if you can simplify that, what would be your first response to that question?
The first response is always goes to getting, I call it a foundational awareness of menopause.
Okay.
Um, I can tell you that I don't know how many women reach out to me that have never even heard of perimenopause. And
Oh,
perimenopause is one of the most impactful phases of menopause. It's when women have
my
most of
heart.
their symptoms. And
Yeah.
it's also, it can last for 3 years for some women, 15 to 20 for others. So a lot of times women are going through perimenopause not knowing it's perimenopause. So they think that they have all these illnesses and other things going on, and not understanding that there is actually things that they can do. So again, it just goes back to that foundational awareness. I have a program called Menopause Made Simple, and every woman that has gone through that program says, I wish I had knew this earlier, because all
Yeah.
these symptoms that I was going through, I just thought, I was getting old and this is just part of getting old. I'm just going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. But now they have this hope and this desire, this actual desire to actually be proactive in actually making these changes. And again, it goes back to, I always say this repetitive, you'll probably hear me say it 1,000 times. When you know better, you can do better. And until you know the information, you're not going to be able to make the right choices, to advocate for yourself. So many women think, okay, I'll go to my gynecologist or my GP for information. Well, 70% of doctors don't even have a solid foundational base in education in menopause. It's just not taught in medical schools. So if you do find a doctor, you have to make sure that,
Stop right there, because I want the audience to hear that 70% of doctors, you are not a doctor.
Nope.
70% of them are not even schooled about menopause.
And I can break it down even further for you. 58% of residents who have gone through the gynecology program, the OBGYN program, 58% of them say that they only got a 1-hour lecture in all their years of study about menopause. 20% said they got nothing.
Even in the OBGYN programs, the gynecology program.
Yes. 58%,
what
1 hour.
Today? I mean,
well, because they're focusing on childbirth. They're focusing on the part before menopause. They're focusing on all of that part, right? They're not focusing on the aging part. And then I do have to say that we also have to think about the fact that, 40, 50 years ago, women also didn't live as long as they do now. So a lot of women, when they were going through menopause, they maybe had 5, 10 more years left. So to them, going through menopause meant that they were getting old. Whereas now women can live 30, 40 years past menopause. So it really is not an old woman issue. And also, just to let women know, menopause can happen at any time. The youngest case of menopause recorded is 17 years old. So it can happen at any time. It's just about knowing. Yes. And it can be medically induced as well. Women get a hysterectomy. I had a woman 30 years old pushed into menopause because of a hysterectomy. So we have to get past this stigma and this taboo that it's an old woman's issue. Again, this is a time of rebirth. We have to think about the fact that also women go through this during, most of the time, it's empty nester time. So your kids are leaving the house. So guess what? You can focus on yourself now. Right? Yeah. You can do those things. It's also a time when a lot of women are getting back into the workforce. My sister-in-law works for a company called Relaunch, and they actually help women relaunch their careers after this period of time. But with that even said, women going into the workplace with menopause are having struggles because there's no support there. A lot of women, because of the poor sleep, the memory issues and things like that, they don't feel confident in the workplace. And a lot of women who also this stage of life is when they're in the peak of their careers, turn down promotions and things because of the menopause, and they're afraid of how they'll be perceived. But if we had more menopause awareness in the workplace, if we had more menopause resources in society in general, that taboo would go away. And actually, studies have also found that when women were able to just speak about menopause, it minimized their symptoms by 20%. Just being able to talk about it.
Wow. Just being able to talk about it. Well, thank goodness for having this conversation today, Tafik. So that brings up men too, because we're going to talk about the effect it has in the work environment. Most women are working with men and women, and a lot of them have leaders, team leaders, bosses, and so forth who are gentlemen. And so how do we bring men into this conversation and it not be too weird for anybody?
Well, I think that the big reason that is weird is because we're not bringing everyone into the conversation, right? I always say we have to look at menopause beyond the physical part. Like we think of menopause and everyone thinks of hot flashes, mood swings, not being able to sleep. But menopause is more than just a health issue. It's a life issue. It impacts a woman physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that means it's going to affect her at home, at work, and in society. And at home, work, and society, there's going to be men. There's going to be kids. There's going to be teenagers. So everyone needs to be part of the conversation. I actually was just speaking with a lady yesterday, and she asked a similar question. She said, so if we're talking about menopause in a group, how would you approach talking to men about it? I talk to them the same way I talk to women about it. It's just, we're just sharing information, right? It's just about sharing that information. And I always say this, you have to think about even like the husbands, women. I have so many women that are afraid to talk to their husbands, like about maybe the vaginal issues that they're having because of menopause. And I'm like, but
He's your
You've had
husband.
children with this man. You can't
You have
talk
sex
about
with
this.
this man.
Yes,
You
you can't. It's like, why would you be nervous about talking to him about it? And then we have to also think about, and let me just, the precursor here is that it's not the same, but it's very similar. Men go through something called andropause, which is known to be the male version of menopause. Now, it is different, and I'm going to give you the ways that it's different, right?
Yeah.
So women, you have two hormones that are happening that are decreasing at the same time when you go through menopause. Men only have the one that goes through. Also, women have that period. They say it's the between 40 and 50, right? Or 40 and 60, they say is that period where the menopause happens. Men go through andropause from 40 to 90. It's a longer span of time that men experience it. So that means that the decline is much slower. But of the 40% of men over 45 who have the higher decrease, they're in something called andropause. They get hot flashes, they get mood swings, they get night sweats, they get anxiety. I always tell people, remember back when they used to talk about men going through a midlife crisis?
Oh yeah,
Guarantee you,
sports car.
guarantee you, they were
Sports
in
car and
andropause.
women. That was the big stereotype that they get a
But you
sports
know, I
car and come in.
guarantee
Yeah.
you they are in andropause, and that's their way of trying to make up for their dip in testosterone. So what do? They do things that make them feel more manly. They go get a sporty car. Because men feel things very differently. You have to also think of this. I heard this from a gentleman that owns a company called Rebalance Health, and he shared, and it made so much sense. Women, when you go through puberty, you start your menstrual cycle, you automatically get this sense of how your body is. You're more in tune with your body. You're more in tune with the changes. You know when your cycle's coming. You know when your cycle's late. You have all these symptoms. Men don't have that. So that we're not in tune with our bodies the way that women are. So for us, if we have a hot flash, it's like, oh, it's hot in here. Whereas women, you feel it internally. You feel it from the inside out because you're just more in tune with it. So you just have a different sensibility about it because you're more in tune with your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, than men are. So we don't have that same response to the symptoms, but we still get them. And again, if everyone spoke about this, I had a gentleman on my show who actually talked about him and his wife were going through hot flashes at the same time, but neither one of them knew and neither one of them were talking about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So that do men know they're going through andropause? Like,
They
do they even
don't.
know there is
Yeah.
andropause?
It's becoming more known now. Again,
Okay.
and I'm actually in andropause, so I know firsthand. You
Well,
know,
that's even more.
I actually take something called TRT, which is the male form of hormone replacement therapy, which is
Really?
testosterone replacement therapy. And also, when some women take testosterone for their menopause as well. By the way, it's not just estrogen and progesterone. But yes, for men, there is the hormone replacement. There's also the same kind of things. If we do it too long, there's a higher risk of prostate cancer. So there's a lot of similarities. And this is why I always say that if we talked more to each other, there would be more understanding of what's going on. I always say, women don't talk to each other about menopause. Do you think men are talking to each other about andropause? No.
No.
So women aren't talking to each other, men aren't talking to each other, and we're not talking to each other in general. So the more we just talk about it, that's how we make it normalized. You have to speak about it and talk about it like it's not a big deal. And that's how I speak about it with anyone I talk to, because it's not a sex thing. It's not, and I think that's part of the problem too. A lot of people think, I remember one lady said, you have no right to talk about this, no uterus, no opinion. I'm like, it's not about that. It's so much more than that.
No uterus, no opinion. Okay.
Right? You know?
Wow. You really got
Yeah.
told off, didn't you?
But it's those kind of things. There's like this divisiveness that it's like, on one hand, you say that if men went through this, there'd be a cure, there'd be this, there'd be that. But
Right.
then you don't want us in the conversation. So it's like, how can we help if you don't want us here? Or like even like on the talk shows. I always bring this up because I remember when Oprah did the menopause talk. I think it was back in October or November. I was so excited because I'm like, oh, if
Oh, yeah,
Oprah's talking about it, now everybody's going to be talking
that's
about it.
right. Yes.
Within the first 2 minutes, Oprah, men, this is not for you.
Wait. Oprah said that?
Yes.
What?
As soon as it started, men, this is not for you. Because, and that's what I mean. There's just whatever there is, there's this thing that people automatically want to make it separate. There was even a doctor that came on and she's like, men have it easy. They go through puberty and then they're done. Well, number one, again, why even say that? It's divisiveness. And then number two, as a doctor, I was taken aback because that's medically inaccurate.
Well,
Right. So it's like as soon as we get rid of that divisiveness where it's like, men, this isn't for you, or you shouldn't be part of this conversation because you don't have a uterus. We can't make the changes and come together if there's this kind of separation. And that's another thing that I'm hoping to help break down that barrier, like or like Halle Berry said, she went to a male doctor and she's like, so I had to do what no man could do. I'm like, really? There's a lot of us out there helping. You know what I mean? There's a lot of men doing this. Just because you didn't find them doesn't mean that we're not out here.
yeah, well, kudos to all of you who are and who care about what's going on with women's health and men's health and want to encourage the conversation. I'd really like to just affirm my husband right now because he is someone who has really cared about, what I'm going through or whatever in terms of, especially like every time I have a hot flash, which I had them for a big stretch, and then they disappeared for a couple of years, and I thought, oh goody, I'm done with those, and then here they came again, and they've come back in pretty full force now in the last year or so. And every time I have one, he'll be like fanning me or something, and he'll say, "Oh gosh, I just don't know what to do for you. I'm here for you, but I don't know what to do for you." And that is great. I mean, that makes me feel so good that he's just like it's like he's hanging with me during it,
Mhm.
but even though he's helpless to change it in a just as I am really, or I feel I am in the moment. And then the other thing is that, those of you women who are having heterosexual relationships and you're having sexual intercourse with men and you're going through menopause, you may be struggling with pain, dryness, irritation. That can be part of the symptoms. And if you can have sex with a man, you ought to be able to talk to him about what's going on with your body that's affected by this. And so again, that's another way I really want to shout out to my husband because I will just say right out to him, oh gosh, we need to work into this a little more slowly. I'm really dry down there. We've tried different lubricants and now we've kind of found the one we think's best for us. And, all of this. And it's like, if we can be that intimately involved with someone that we can have sexual experiences with them, then by all means, at least start your menopause conversations with those men in your life that you're closest to
Mhm.
and who are directly affected by your health and your behavior and your moods and everything else. I mean, and if they aren't good listeners, then we need to work on them a little bit. But
Yeah. Well, I
anyway,
think I think that totally goes back to what I was saying about everyone needing to be educated about it.
yeah, for
Because one of
sure.
the things that I always say in my talks where there are men in the room, I have to say, listen, when women go through menopause and these vaginal changes happen,
Yeah,
your go-to thought as a man is she doesn't love me anymore. She's not attracted to me. That's your ego talking. It has nothing to do with
that's
you.
it.
She's in pain. And it
Right.
may be more than just the physical pain. It could be emotionally hurting her that she can't do that with you anymore, right? So again, it's about that understanding. And because of that, like the emotional component, that might be why some women are not as easy to open up about it, because it, just like the men go through the thing where they feel like they're losing their manhood, some women feel like they're losing their womanhood. So they don't want to discuss it in that way either. So again, just more open conversations, and having, like, when you go to these if you go to a webinar or a group meeting or a support group, bring your husband with you. Just have him listen. He doesn't have to participate, just listening and learning so that he can understand. Because again, a lot of times he may be thinking that he's experiencing something with you that no one could understand, but he might find out again that other men are having this situation with their wife as well. And maybe there's something that he can learn about that can help him as well in the relationship. And at the end of the day, men who are in marriages by and far want their wives to be happy and healthy. And, so it's like, if they have the ability to be able to support you, I'm sure they will. It's just, if they don't know how to support, then, as most men do, they do nothing. Right? So if you
Right.
don't know what to do,
And so, what if someone out there is with a man or ends up with a man who, thinks he has nothing to do with this, that this doesn't apply to him and he doesn't need to bother with any of that? Like, do you have any advice on that?
yeah. You have no control over what other people do, but you have control over what you do. So
Mm,
you can absolutely take all the proactive steps that you need to do for yourself in order for you to be as healthy, vibrant, and vital as you can be for as long as you can be. I always say, even like I have clients that are going through like issues during menopause, like with relationships. And I always say one of the biggest issues during menopause is that there's a spike in anxiety, a spike in depression. And that's because estrogen works in those areas as well. And when that goes down, if you're someone who already had anxiety or had depression, that's going to be heightened. Right.
Oh,
And
really?
so, yes, because the
Learned that.
depression is leaving. So, I mean, the estrogen is leaving. So that buffer is no longer there. So most women end up being more depressed or more anxious once the menopause starts setting in. So again, if you don't have that support system at home, you've got to find it somewhere for yourself. You got to
Yep.
go speak
Yep.
with a counselor, go find a support group, join some kind of a group, because again, this is happening to your body physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the only way to get past that is to work on all those things together. Even like when women say, "Oh, I'm doing HRT," that's great, but you still need to work on your mind, body, and spirit all as a whole. Not just because the HRT will be much more effective if you're doing all the holistic things in your daily life in order to be healthy and vibrant as well. The HRT is just one component of your support system that's going to help you, or your plan, your menopause plan.
Okay, and I've heard recently from a coaching client of mine say that she's been told that no one, I know there's no one size fits all, but she's been told, I believe by a doctor, gynecologist perhaps, that there's no hormone replacement therapy for anyone after age 59 or 60. That they don't recommend that. So does that mean it's too long term of a use and there's risks for cancers, or is that not what
Yes.
you're
So
finding in research yourself, or what would you
yes,
say?
so from all the education research that I've done on HRT and have been gone through the courses with, what they say is that the longer you're on HRT, that the higher probability is that there's other things that can happen, and the later that you start it. So if, let's say, if you go into menopause at 50, but you don't start HRT until 56, you have a higher risk of something happening that could be health related, like cancer or something, than if you had started it when you first had menopause. That is, and also for the men, same thing with testosterone. The longer you're on it, the more symptoms that you can have, more issues that you can have. And also, for men, the longer you're on it, the longer your body's going to be dependent to being on it. So you're going to have to be on it more long term if you want to keep that health and vitality aspect of it.
Okay, all right, wow.
Did that answer your questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
did. I think so. So it's not necessarily a cutoff at 59, but it's more, how long has this woman been on
Yes.
hormone replacement therapy, um, and therefore what are the risks or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, and that was a large part. Like a lot of people don't understand this about that research study that was done years ago about HRT that got everyone so afraid of it. You know, what they didn't tell you is that most of the women that were in that study were over 60. Most of them
Oh,
already had pre-existing health conditions.
oh,
You know, there was a whole lot of things going on with that. So of course they had higher symptoms, higher rates of things because, and also it wasn't even I believe it was a synthetic type of an HRT that had some other things in it that made it so that those things happen. And the study wasn't even complete when they released it. So
oh,
there's a lot of, again, there's so much misinformation out there, which is why I always say too, if you're going to follow someone or you're looking for information,
mhm.
do not go to 6 different sources. Find one source or two sources that are accredited or licensed in menopause health. And that's very important, the accreditation or the license. That means they've gone through a curriculum that has been accredited, that has the information that you need in it, or whether it's a doctor, whether it's a menopause specialist, even, you know, there are even some chiropractors that I know of that have gone on to get that certification because they have a lot of female clients. So they want to know that information. So as long as they have that accreditation, and if you're not sure how to find someone, you can go to the Menopause Society, formerly known as the North American Menopause Society, and they have a list that you can find in your state of doctors that have gone through the certification, so you can find a certified menopause specialist in your area or close to your area.
Okay, that is fantastic. So the Menopause Society,
Yes.
that's where
Mhm.
you go to find somebody in your state who's been certified in this actual, yeah.
Yeah, in menopause. Yeah,
Great.
because there's another thing, ladies, there's no such thing as a menopause doctor. So a lot of women, who's the doctor? There is no doctor for menopause.
So
Whatever
even the
doc, it's
OB/GYNs and the gynecologists and all of, they're not even considered
it's
menopause
whatever, it's the doctor that has gone to get the license or certification,
doctors.
right?
Oh,
And a lot of even I don't know, I believe her name is Dr. Mary is it Haver, I believe.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't
She's a really well-known I think she's known as the #1 menopause doctor in the country or something.
know.
But even she talked about how she hadn't had education, and it wasn't until she went through menopause that she took the initiative to go and get educated, because when
Mhm.
she was going through it, she couldn't find support. Right.
Uh,
So, and she was a medical doctor, right? Working with
wow.
women. So, and she hadn't been educated, but she went that extra mile and got that certification. So again, making sure that the people that you're talking to are well educated and well versed. And again, it doesn't have to be a doctor, right? I know that through the Menopause Society, the doctors that are accredited there
Mhm.
you're only able to get accredited if you go through their accreditation, right? So those doctors, but that their accreditation is no different than another nationally accredited company that
Right.
has done it. So a doctor going through the accreditation or someone like myself going through the accreditation, we're still getting the same information. So it doesn't have to be a doctor. That's what's important to know, but they do need to be licensed or accredited, right? So don't just go to your local menopause specialist if they don't have the accreditations on their wall. So,
And they have to have like 20 things on their
well,
wall.
no, these are all different ones that I've done.
I'm
Well,
just
for me, what's important for me again, because I see myself as an educator. I stopped doing coaching one-on-one because again, I found that it doesn't matter how much coaching I do. If the person that I'm coaching isn't educated on what they need to do, they're not going to sustain what I've done for them. So now I've gone into the education piece. So all I do is the education. So every year I do some kind of a continued education course. So that's why I have so many, because I just keep wanting to learn if so, or new research might come out about something,
sure.
you know. And so I just try to keep on top of everything so that when I'm providing education, it is the most researched, the up-to-date information that I'm putting out there. And again, you also want someone who's open to making corrections on the things that they may have said incorrectly. There's some things that I said like 4 years ago that I now know are different. So I had to go and correct that and say, before I said this, well, new research shows this. You want a doctor that is really, or a specialist that is moving forward with the times and not just stuck in the old ways.
Okay, that's really great advice there. So let's dial this down to some real practical day in day out. Let's get into the daily life of a menopausal woman a little bit, and can you talk a little bit about some of the practical ways a woman can, whatever she can do, or ways that she can support herself to really maximize this season of life and
Mhm.
feel healthy and vital even as she's aging and
Yeah.
menopausal.
Absolutely. I would say number one is prioritize your health. One of the biggest mistakes I think that happens is because we live in a society where everything is so visual, everyone wants to be that a lot of women want to focus on the weight loss, right?
Oh,
That's they're like, oh, I've got this middle I've never had before, and you want to focus on the weight loss. The stuff I used to do doesn't work anymore. The diet, and and I always say it this way. The reason that the things that used to work aren't working anymore, the reason that that's happening is because it's not a weight loss issue. It's a hormone issue, right?
okay.
So you can't
Okay.
focus on the weight loss because the weight loss is a symptom of the hormone issue, right?
Oh boy.
That's why it's happening. And you can lose weight, but when it comes back, it's going to come back with a vengeance, and it's going to come back more, and it's going to be harder to get away because you're not focusing on the right thing. When you focus on balancing your hormones and getting your hormones at a healthy level, your body will naturally burn the fat to what it's supposed to be healthily, as long as you're eating healthy, exercising correctly. I get
Mhm.
tons of women that are still doing 2 hours of cardio and all the stuff they used
No,
to do.
no.
Well, number one, when estrogen drops, you start losing muscle and you start losing bone. You don't want to increase cardio. Cardio is going to make you lose more muscle. You
Well,
want
and
to
doesn't
actually
it kick in
increase
the
strength training.
cortisol?
What's
Yeah,
that?
doesn't it kick in the cortisol
Uh,
stress
well,
hormone too,
well,
doing too much
well,
cardio?
exactly. That happens. That happens automatically because of the drop in estrogen. So here's another thing as it relates to cortisol and stress in general. I think
Okay.
oftentimes when we think about stress, we think about, oh, stress because I had an argument with my significant other or because I'm having a hard time at work. But when it
Well,
comes to
that'll
the
do it, Tafiq. That will do it,
well,
Mr.
yes, but
Menopause.
but but that's one piece of it because cortisol responds to all stress, physical, mental, and emotional. It can be the stress you can break an arm. That's going to kick
Oh,
in
yes,
cortisol in your body.
sure.
It when your estrogen goes away, that's kicking in cortisol. So then you add to that doing exercise that you really shouldn't be doing, stressing out your body, then add to that the anxiety that you're not losing the weight, then adding to that the stress of something else, your cortisol is
So
way. And
high,
so,
high.
and cortisol is the belly fat hormone. So again, all of that is hormone related. That has nothing to do with going on a diet.
So what do we do then? You started to say strength training, and I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, but that's for the physical, the exercise component. You should be doing more strength training than cardio training. You don't want to think about fat loss. You want to think about muscle building. And muscle
Okay.
building is not the same as muscle size, right? We want to think about muscle tone, like making your muscle stronger, tighter, toner, not bigger, right? And
Okay.
another thing too, women's muscle fibers don't have the capability of bulking up unless you add steroids or things like that's why the women that you see doing bodybuilding, they look like that is because they're doing enhancements to get that big. You're not going to just get that
Oh,
big regularly working out with heavier weights. It's not going, your body just doesn't respond like that, right?
okay.
And
So
so
things
it's
like yoga is also a strength training, right?
well, depending on
Or
what kind you do. Some of them can be yoga, but it can also be, you can also lift weights. Lifting weights is one of the best things. That's what I do with all my clients, but I do it in a way that's, again, more about toning the muscle rather than building up the muscle. And again, that's that's the lifestyle component, but that's about wellness. It's not about weight loss. Remember, that's not about weight loss. That's about increasing lean muscle. Here's what you need to know. The more lean muscle you have on your body, the more your body will burn fat at rest. So that means just sitting down with lean muscle on your body's burning fat. You're not going on a run. You're not doing jumping jacks. You're not doing burpees. You're just sitting there. So the more lean muscle you have, your body's going to burn fat. But I go back to no matter what the woman chooses to do as far as lifestyle things, you got to first get the awareness. From that awareness, once you understand how menopause is affecting you mentally, physically, and emotionally, then you're able to make confident decisions about which direction you want to go with your care. Right? You'll know whether or not what you're experiencing needs yoga or whether you need a strength training routine, because you'll understand how your body is responding to menopause, because different women are going to respond differently. Right? Every woman's menopause journey is unique to her. This is also why you should not be following the advice of your girlfriend, because her medical background, everything is completely different to yours. Her body's going to respond very different to HRT. Whenever I hear someone say, oh, you got to do this, this is the best thing ever, I always end it with, for some people. Right?
Yeah,
Don't just put blanket statements out there. It's for some people. But again, once you have that knowledge, you can advocate for certain things with your doctor. Like you can go to your doctor and they can say, well, let's put you on this. Well, if you know that there's 3 different types of HRT, but there's also non-hormone medical treatments that you can do. There's also herbal remedies that have been proven to give you results. If you go into your doctor armed with that information, you're able to create a plan with your doctor rather than just taking their advice on what you should be doing, which may not be what's best for your individual needs. So again, it just goes back to the awareness.
Okay. So one of the things you said a moment ago was weight gain is about an imbalance of hormones.
During
We also
menopause, yeah.
talked about how, there's kind of an age where you really don't want to get into hormone replacement therapy. So what does one do to balance their hormones if hormone replacement therapy is not really a valid option?
Again, there's non-hormone medications that can help women with hot flashes, mood swings, and things like that, that people would not consider to be menopause medications, like gabapentin. That is something that can help with certain things, but that's all. Then there's also some anxiety medications that can help with menopause symptoms. So again, this is why it's important to know these things and know what the risks and benefits are of those things, so that when you go to your doctor and say, well, I heard about this, and your doctor can say, if they're not versed in menopause, you're giving them information that they can look up there with you, and then you can see what the path is forward. But if you have a doctor that is versed in menopause, then they already know about those. And then there are tons of different herbal things like black cohosh, red clover, different things that can also help, as well as even like physical things like acupuncture. And a lot of people like kind of brush over the idea of breathing techniques and things like this. Those things have been proven
They actually work.
to actually help, but they're not going to work if you don't do them.
Yeah,
And that again goes back to what I was saying earlier about when I was coaching. I can coach people to say, do this, do that, do that, do that. But if they don't understand why, how it's actually affecting them, they're less likely to continue with it. Whereas if they understand the basis of it, what the reason is behind it and all that, they can understand how it's actually working in their body, and they'll know how their body is supposed to respond to it. One of the things that I can't stand when coaches or anyone says to their clients is, listen to your body. What does that mean?
Oh,
You know what I mean? Because listening to your body means something different to you than it does to me. So if I'm not telling you what to listen for, then what exactly are you listening? That's kind of like that one of the phrases that a coach once said, if you tell someone to go outside and pick a rock because I want to be able to do something, they go and pick a rock and they come back and you're like, oh no, not that rock. And you keep sending them out. If you don't tell them what kind of rock to go get, they're going to keep bringing back a rock that you don't really want. Right. So you have to really explain. And again, this goes back to why I think that awareness and education is so important.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, okay, you've covered a lot there. You've said a lot there. Gosh, and it's about time for us to wrap it up. So what would you like your closing thought to be? I mean, I know one of your big messages is obviously awareness, like get aware. I feel like another one is like, let's open the conversation up. Let's make this a non-issue to talk about this with ourselves, with our doctors, with other experts, with our spouses, with people we love in our life, no matter who they are, women or men.
Mhm.
Uh,
And focus on health. Focus on health
focus on health
improvement.
and vitality,
Yes.
right?
Focus on improve because that is going to open up so many different things for you. When you feel better,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to think about that. When you feel better, it opens up your mind. There's more clarity. Like you can
So
see
true.
things better. You're able to complete things better. You're able to focus more. You're able to give more to other people around you. So you have to focus on the feel better, but not just about the ego feel better, the physical feel better, like
Yeah.
the lifting up, but you wake up and you're like, you feel like you can tackle the world. I had so many
Yeah.
women that started the program where they're like, I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. Like they don't feel like
Yeah.
getting out of bed in the morning, or
Yes.
they just lay in bed all day because there's nothing like. But if you're feeling better, you have some more energy, you get a good night's sleep, and all these things, like I'm saying, all of these holistic things that you can start doing,
Mm-hmm.
do not overlook them because they do work. If there's like things that you can do to make your nights your sleep better during night, like even if it's down to if you need to start an hour before you go to bed, shutting off all the blue light things and all
Oh
that. I know you don't think it works. It
yeah.
does
Oh my
work,
gosh,
but
it does
you have to do
work.
it.
Yes. Yes. And just give it a try. Give things an
Yes.
honest try. And then if something doesn't work for you, move on to the next thing to try. But
Mhm.
yes, we're talking about this. Menopause is a quality of life issue.
Mhm.
It's a quality of life issue at home, at the office, in our relationships, everywhere. And most of all, in our relationship with ourselves.
Mhm.
And so, yes, we have to want a high quality life enough to have the conversations, try different things, and just keep insisting that there is a way for us to age well and be
And there
strong.
is. Don't even insist on it. I want every woman out there to know there is a way for you to be better. Isn't it? There is no might be, no maybe. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've been a part of it. I see it. So I know that it's possible. It's just a lot of times in life in general, sometimes we just get in our own way. We get stuck in one way of thinking
True.
about things. So as soon as you're able to turn that page and see another chapter, you say, oh, I didn't know that was possible. Yeah, it's possible. And this is how it's possible. And there's so many ways that that can happen. So yeah, and of course, again, leaning into that health thing. But as far as like putting those things into action, it's also really important for people to know, especially when it comes to improving your health and vitality. It takes 8 to 12 weeks of consistency before you will actually feel a substantial change. So when
Mm,
you say try things out, it's not try it out for a week.
okay.
It's try it
No.
out consistently for about 8 to 12 weeks. And
Great.
that's why so many programs or challenges are 8-week programs or 12-week
Yes.
programs, because scientifically it takes that long to see a result. So as long as you stick with it for that period of time,
Mhm.
if you stick with it, I promise you, you'll feel better. And
Well,
that's whether it's a food change, a physical change, a sleep change, a stress management change, a mindset change, any of that.
awesome. Well, that is a lovely, positive, encouraging note to end on. Again, this is Mr. Menopause, and we will have all your how to find him in the show notes for you and so forth. And
And can I just share that really quickly? In that, I think the link that I gave you.
Yeah, sure.
So there is a free resource there. It's the Menopause Awareness Assessment. And the
Yeah.
reason that I gave you that was because I knew we were going to be talking about all this stuff. And what the awareness assessment will do is it'll let you know where you are on your level of awareness. So if you're at a lower level, it'll tell you what you need to focus on to learn. If you're at a middle level, it'll tell you what you need to focus on to feel better. If you are someone who has no awareness whatsoever, it'll give you first steps of the things that you can do to move forward. Because again, awareness is the key. And as long as you know where you are, then you'll know how to move forward.
What a great tool. What a great starting point. So you heard it here. Go take that assessment. It's free. And then you'll have some next steps before you that can really help move you forward. So, all right. Well, let's raise the consciousness together about menopause and let's open up that conversation wide, everybody out there listening. And gosh, Tafik, I just can't thank you enough for your time and expertise today. I really enjoyed hearing all you had to say about it. And I know it's going to make a difference. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know I'm really passionate about it, so I know I get a little long-winded sometimes. So thank you for letting me go on my tangent.
Hey, it's okay. I go on tangents about stuff I believe in all the time. So I certainly understand it. So thank you so much. And everybody out there listening, thank you so much for being here. I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.